love being outdoors, and I love nature. Always have since I was a child. My nature is kind of anxious and a nervous type, but nature calms me down. It always does. It calms me, makes me feel like everything's okay. So I love nature, and I love what I love about this little rock painting was I love to find rocks that already looked like something else. They already had their image there, just waiting for me to bring it out. That's what's been really fun, finding something that already looks the part. Let me show you an example. Well, here, how about this old boot? Just walking along, taking a walk, and I said, there's a boot. It's got to come home with me and be painted. And a Birkenstock, I would find lots of shoes, just fun things like that. But I think my first rocks that I started painting were actually the Madonnas and children. And I found most of them right here around my house. Just little, I would just see Mary and Jesus. I would just see them everywhere and pick them up and want to paint them. One thing I love about rocks, every little child that comes in, I show them to them, and they love them. Didn't you? You loved them, didn't you, dear? This is Deer and Holtzclaw, and she's my partner in rocks. For the ghost.
And I love the penguin.
You love the penguin? Yeah. As far as writing, I, like I say, I have written for Georgia Backroads. Can you see? Probably one of the most, this article I wrote about Ludowici. Not everybody knows Ludowici, but those that do know about it. And I got the most comments about this article, the history of Ludowici. Everybody that I meet is interesting to me. And I could write a story probably about every person I've ever met. People interest me so much. I'm very grateful. I had a 25-year career with the State Bar of Georgia, and I was able to write articles for the Georgia Bar Journal. And there's a stack of them, I don't know, probably through the years, 50 or 75, I don't know how many. But working for the State Bar of Georgia gave me such an opportunity to meet so many great people and interesting people there. But when I would do an article, I tried my best to kind of showcase South Georgia and promote South Georgia and tell stories that people in North Georgia really wouldn't know about us down here, and to kind of showcase people that are outstanding in our area. And one day I'm at work at the State Bar, and Henry Tiff Myers Jr. walked in the door. He had just moved to Georgia from Texas. And he introduced himself, and I said, "Oh, I know who your daddy was." And I started just rapid fire questions, asking him 1,000 things. I was so interested. And he says, "Well, I've got all the information in trunks and scrapbooks. You want to look at them?" And that was it. I spent the next 5 years of my life going through all of that. And this is what came out of it, Fixing the Moon, the story of Lieutenant Colonel Henry Tiff Myers, the first presidential pilot and aviation pioneer. And I just loved it. I loved World War II history, and I just felt like that this man gave me a ringside seat into the things that were going on in the war that a lot of people just would not know about it. I mean, there were a lot of confidential files that I was able to look at, after the fact, and the Henry helped design President Roosevelt's plane, the Sacred Cow, and I saw the early drawings of the airplane. I mean, it was just fascinating to me. After this one, I did Happy Tales, Happy Giardo. What a sweetie. Happy's life was a lot like my grandmother's. When she was 8 years old, her mother died. And then a couple of years later, her father died. And her brothers and sisters were much older, and they were gone. So she was just kind of shoved around different places to live. And she was living with an aunt and uncle in Tallahassee that she loved, and they had children, and she just felt she had finally found her forever home. Well, her aunt died, and her uncle remarried. The new wife did not want Happy. And this happened at Christmas time. So her birthday was ruined because her mother died on her birthday, and then she got evicted from the house at Christmas. So she was sent to an orphanage in Thornwell Orphanage in South Carolina, Clinton, South Carolina. And Happy thrived there because she had access to libraries and books and stuff that she'd never had before, and she just, you know, studied and read and just loved it, and went on to FSU and was the first woman to graduate with a master's in etymology from Florida State University. The next book I did, The Captain of His Turf, this is the story of Ray Jensen. When I was a little girl, my parents, and you know, most of my life were in landscaping, had landscaping business. And they always talked about Ray Jensen, what a fine gentleman he was. They would buy grass from Mr. Ray and just thought the world of him. Well, when I moved here to this condo, not too much longer, he moved in across the street and gave me an opportunity to talk to him and to get to know him better. And within 10 minutes of talking to Mr. Jensen, I said, there's a book there. Your family needs to know this, Mr. Jensen. It's just too darn interesting. So that's how The Captain of His Turf came about. Mr. Jensen's grandfather came to America when he was 10. Y'all know, I don't know, you might not know this, I didn't until I started research, that the Mormons went to Europe to get memberships, to come to America to get members. And Denmark was one of the main places that they evangelized. And Mr. Jensen's grandfather, of course, was a Dane, and they talked him into coming over. And he came without his family, got to New York, and this is unbelievable, but truly walked to Utah. The Mormons walked. At first there was ox carts and wagons, and then when that went, they actually walked. They took a push car and walked, and that's what Mr. Jensen's grandfather did. Mr. Jensen grew up very poor in Utah, had a very hard scrabble life, but was bright, so bright. And teachers through the years encouraged him to continue his education, and he did. Got his degree in agronomy, and came to the experiment station in Tifton, and we were lucky to have him. He worked with Dr. Burton that we talked about earlier, and early on Mr. Jensen saw the marketing or the potential in centipede grass, and golf resorts and golf communities were really taking off, and you know, he saw a potential there for a big business, and so he left the experiment station and started his grass farms, and it grew and grew and grew, and he had so many customers that he had to take up flying lessons to fly, so he could fly down to Miami and see a customer and get back home. Mr. Jensen's grass has been at almost every Olympic game. Just all over the world, his influence. And he was a consultant all over the world. Robert Trent Jones, the famous architect, golf course architect, called Mr. Jensen, and Mr. Jensen met him in Hawaii and told him how he could build a golf course on volcanic rock. So just a neat, interesting man. He's also responsible for the Mormon church here in Tifton. When he came to Tifton, the Mormons were meeting out at the cotton mill. They had no home. And through his influence, he got Mr. Tiff to give him a good deal on some land and help build the Mormon church here in Tifton. When I got a call from South Georgia Banking Company, from Glenn Willis, the president of South Georgia Banking Company. Great guy, I love him. And he says, Bonnie, we're coming up on 50 years of our history and of our bank, and we need to have a book. And are you interested? And I said, I am interested. I said, I don't know flip about banking or numbers. He said, doesn't matter, doesn't matter. He said, you love history, don't you? I said, yes, I love history. And South Georgia Bank started in Omega, and so I loved researching Omega and finding out about Omega. You know, it used to be named Surrey. That was the name of it. And the postmaster, another postmaster, changed the name to Omega after Alpha and Omega in the Bible because the residents had moved around several little places in and out, and finally they settled there. So that was the Omega. That was it, the end. No more moving around. So that's how Omega got its name. But I love doing this book. It was very difficult. Like I say, I'm not a banker. I had a lot of help with the vice president and all of the officers. And Glenn Willis's mother had kept all of the history and the papers. But this book was a joint effort. A joint effort. It was, but I loved every bit of it, and I loved learning about the bank. And again, I tried to showcase each location where South Georgia Bank is now. Ashburn, Moultrie, Cordele, where else do they have a bank? All of their locations. I kind of did a little showcase of the area, again promoting South Georgia. Started painting silver plate when I was looking at my grandmother's silver tea service that she gave me, and I never used it. It was in the closet for so long because I just wouldn't polish it, you know, but I didn't want it to just be in the closet, so I decided to paint it. So this was her little service set that I started with, and that was the first one I did of silver plate. And then I told friends, I said, I'm painting silver plate. They said, do you want mine? Nobody wanted it anymore because nobody wants to polish. So people would bring silver plate to me and drop it off at the door. And I would just sit down and whatever would come to me. I didn't have a design plan or anything. I just painted things that I like. Color, I love color, color. And birds. And insects and butterflies. And that's another one with butterflies. But anyway, it's just fun. And I've given some pieces away, and people have used them for like vases or whatnot too, you know. But anyway, it just all started from not wanting to polish, but yet wanting my grandmother's little service, you know, where I could remember it and see it, that kind of thing. This, what I painted, again, I love color and texture. I don't know why, but I just do. And this was a print, an old Maxwell Parrish print that my daddy gave me. He gave me 2 of them, and I loved them, and they hung in my house forever. But I got a little tired of them, but yet I didn't want to get rid of them. So I just decided to paint over the glass. And I told my boys, I said, now look, the Maxwell Parrish prints are under this. And if you want them, you can just put a new piece of glass over it and you'll have the prints back. So they're safe and sound, and they won't get any more sun damage because they're covered. But anyway, this is just painted directly onto glass.